Days bled into nights, each hour a fresh horror. The Hydra proved true to its name. For every head Guilliman cut off, 2 more sprang up to bite him in the ass. In the end, the great Robut Guilliman, master tactician and paragon of virtue, did the only thing he could. He ran like a bitch. The Empire's heart beat with secrets, none blacker than the 20th Legion. Even the highest lords, fat on power and ignorance, knew only whispers. The Emperor himself had sealed those lips. Fools. Secrets have a way of growing teeth in the dark. What was meant as a hidden dagger became a beast with too many heads to count, each one dripping venom. The Alpha Legion, fitting name for a monster beyond control. Some scholars love to prattle on about Horus and his precious title, as if that's what tipped the scales. The rot was there from the start, planted in gene seed and watered with lies. A pit of writhing snakes, their scales gleaming with poisoned promises. That's the true face of the 20th. Beautiful and lethal and utterly hopelessly beyond any leash, be it the Emperors or the War Masters. In the early murky days of the Imperium, 3 legions, the 20th, 18th, and 6th, were forged in secrecy, apart from the brotherhood of the other legions Astartes. These shadowy origins, intended by the Emperor for purposes cloaked in mystery, sowed seeds of isolation that grew into vast fields of mistrust. While the salamanders of the 18th Legion eventually crawled into the light, the Alpha Legion found themselves increasingly alienated. They embraced the darkness, wore it like a second skin. You want to know about their early days on Terra? Good fucking luck. The usual dregs of history, the myths, the drunken tales, the grandfather's boasts, all silent. What remains is a jigsaw of nightmares, whispers of black-clad killers materializing from thin air, high-born bastards vanishing without a trace, entire war zones parting like whores' legs at the flash of an unmarked sigil. Decades passed, and still the Alpha Legion remained a void, sucking in light and spitting out only more questions. Scholars and fools alike gnawed at scraps, desperate to understand what couldn't be understood. And all the while the Hydra grew, its scales glinting with stolen truths and broken oaths. The name, Alpha, tagged to the 20th Legion, has long gnawed at the edges of Imperial curiosity. Was it a mark of arcane lore, or simply a nod to the practical workings within the Emperor's secretive gene labs? Approved by the corpse god himself, yet stunted, a dwarf among giants. 1 to 3,000 warriors, while their brother legions swelled like bloated corpses. It wasn't for lack of quality. Their gene seed took root better than most, outstripping even the fabled space wolves and blood angels. And in battle, they cut through enemies like a plague, leaving only whispers and corpses in their wake. So what kept them leashed? Some say it was bodies, or lack thereof. Terra picked clean of suitable meat for the grinder, the dregs too tainted even for the Emperor's standards. Maybe some disaster, its stench too foul even for Imperial records, showed the folly of scraping the bottom of the barrel. But that's just one whisper in a sea of lies. 2 more theories lurk in the shadows, each offering its own explanation for the 20th's stunted growth. The truth, if it exists at all, lies buried beneath layers of secrecy and time. As the engines of the Great Crusade roared to life in 798 of the 30th millennium, the 20th Legion dissolved into the shadows of the cosmos. For decades, not a whisper, not a trace. Official scrolls and chronicles from that era simply give no account of their deeds. Some fools, drunk on their own theories, claim the 20th was the Emperor's hidden blade, carving out the rot within the Imperium's festering heart. You see, for all the glory and bloodshed of uniting humanity, the real danger was always closer to home. Rebels, traitors, power-hungry cunts who'd tasted defeat in the unification wars but couldn't stop licking at the wounds of their ambition. And let's not forget the poor sods touched by things beyond the veil. Their minds turned to mush and their souls to poison. This was the cancer eating away at the Imperium's guts while its armies marched blindly outward. Someone had to lance the boil, to dig their fingers into the pus and pull out the corruption. And who better than a legion bred in secrecy, kept purposely small, and proven deadly effective? Of course, there's no fucking proof. That's the point, isn't it? The 20th was a ghost, a whisper, a knife in the dark. Their deeds, if they even happened, are buried deeper than the corpses of the Age of Strife. In the Great Crusade's 4th decade, the annals of war were blotted by an ominous occurrence simply referred to as the Incident. A pretty word for the rot that nearly unmade the 3rd Legion, destined to be known as the Emperor's children. Gene seed, the Emperor's precious gift, turned to poison in their veins. Rumors hinted at the touch of an unseen internal adversary. While the Emperor's children writhed in their own filth, ghosts walked the stars, not the teeming hordes of Astartes carving the Emperor's will across the galaxy, but something else. Small packs of killers, you'd catch a glimpse, the flash of Ceramite, the unmistakable bulk of a space marine, and then nothing, just blood, gore, and questions. These weren't your garden variety butchers. No, these bastards wore false faces, slipping into the skins of other legions like a murderer donning his victim's clothes. They'd march under borrowed banners, weaving confusion and deceit across battlefields and silent halls alike. Without the consent or knowledge of those they impersonated, they carried out assassinations, espionage, sabotage, and the mysterious retrieval or abduction of artifacts and individuals, all with a surgeon's precision and a ghost's tracelessness. The silence left in the wake of their blades was profound, sparing no witnesses to tell tales of their passing. Such chilling efficiency left only ripples on the surface of a darker depth, suggesting a weave of clandestine threads tied to the calamity that had struck the 3rd Legion. During the vast sprawl of the Great Crusade, hushed rumors emerged. They spoke of shadows given form, of a ghost legion that moved unseen through the Emperor's grand design. Planetary governors and local commanders pissed themselves at the mere thought, their complaints lost in the cacophony of conquest or silenced by those who knew better than to ask questions. Within the Imperial High Command, fingers pointed covertly towards the 20th, but as the years bled into decades, other specialized killers crawled out of the woodwork, the Custodes, with their golden armor hiding tarnished souls, the Securitas in consensus, spies and liars to a man. And let's not forget the assassins, those lovable psychopaths with a license to butcher. Slowly, the Ghost Legion faded into myth, though its stench never quite dissipated. And then, just like that, they stepped into the light. Why? Did the Emperor's new toys make them obsolete? Had they become too dangerous even for the master of mankind? Or did the tides of war simply demand more bodies for the meat grinder? We'll never know the truth. The Alpha Legion emerged from their cocoon of secrecy, transformed into what exactly? A battle-ready legion like the rest? Don't make me laugh. You can't wash away a century of shadows with a coat of fresh paint. In the blood-soaked nightmare of the Rangdan Xenocides, where even Primarchs waded through oceans of gore, a shadow slithered its way to the lion's ear. Alfarius, it called itself, though its Primarch still lurked in the womb of obscurity. What arrogance to wear a name not yet earned! What delicious audacity! This serpent whispered promises of aid against the Rangdan filth, but that was just the bait on the hook. The real prize? A future where the lion, and not that bureaucrat Gilliman, wore the mantle of War Master. Unsurprisingly, the lion, that golden demigod, had never even heard of the 20th Legion. Oh, he'd caught whiffs of the Ghost Legion, but to have one materialize before him, reeking of ambition and lies? That was new. That was interesting. When the Alpha Legion finally crawled into the light, the Imperium's record keepers tried to make sense of it all. Some say they appeared just before the Farinatu Slaughterfest. Others swear they materialized during the Third Rangdan clusterfuck, 30 years later. Funny how a legion can hide for decades, a blink in the eye of eternity, yet a chasm of significance in the annals of war. Last to the party, these Alpha boys. Last to be recognized. Last to find their gene father, or so they claim. With them, every truth's got teeth, ready to bite the hand that feeds it. The Alpha Legion's very name stands as a twisted joke. Last to step into the light of recognition, yet they brand themselves Alpha. First supreme, a paradox wrapped in ceramite and hubris. But don't mistake this for mere irony. No, this is a declaration of intent scrawled in the blood of lesser men. They pair their Alpha with Omega, bookends of creation itself, and crown it with the Eternus, a symbol so old it reeks of forgotten empires and buried secrets. Picture a serpent, all coiled power and venomous knowledge, writhing around the pillars of reality and truth. A pretty picture until you remember what snakes have always meant. Treachery, lies, and deception that brings empires crashing down. And then there's the Hydra, that many-headed beast of myth. Cut off one head, two more sprout in its place, a fitting emblem for a legion that seems to thrive on subterfuge and regeneration. By the time Horus decided to set the galaxy aflame, the Hydra had sunk its fangs deep into the Alpha Legion's soul. The progression from the Eternus to the Hydra in their symbols mirrors their evolution as a force within the Imperium, marking a journey from the unity and eternity suggested by their earlier sigils to the menacing resilience and multiplying deceptions of the Hydra. In the sprawling saga of the Horus heresy, Alfarius, the Primarch of the Alpha Legion and the last-found bastard son of the Emperor, is a ghost among demigods. In the twilight of the Great Crusade, the galaxy bled from 1,000 cuts, and the lunar wolves prowled the stars like rabid dogs. Then, in some forsaken corner of the void, they found him. Or rather, he found them. Alfarius, they say, led a confederation of human worlds. A flea compared to the imperial behemoth. But oh, what a bite it had. With cunning, this upstart managed to cripple a lunar wolves battleship. Imagine the shock, the indignity of it all. Horus himself, that golden boy of slaughter, had to step in. But Alfarius? He danced through the void like a demon, leaving Horus and his dogs chasing shadows and pissing into the solar wind. Ambush after ambush, deception piled on lie, until even the mighty, vengeful spirit found itself besieged. And then, the coup de grace. While Horus's boys were busy swatting flies, a lone assassin slipped aboard. One man against an army of super soldiers, and he carved through them like they were made of wet shit. The Eusterin, Horus's own Praetorians, fell like wheat before the scythe. There, in the heart of the flagship, surrounded by cooling corpses and the stench of defeat, Horus faced his would-be killer, his brother, his equal. This narrative, though rich with the drama of legends, is but a thread in the complex tapestry of Alpharius's origins. Like all things pertaining to him and his legion, the tales are manifold and marred by the legion's own love for misdirection and veils of secrecy. Each story, potentially a fabrication or a fragment of truth, compounds the enigma, leaving scholars to wade through a morass of maybes and might-have-beens. One tale recounts Horus amidst the clamor of battle on his flagship, recognizing the intruder not as an enemy, but as his long-lost brother, thus completing the circle of the Primarchs. Alpharius, cryptic as ever, spoke of years spent wandering that sector of space, commanding a confederation of planets which would join the Imperium with scarce a whisper of dissent, though he never named any as his own. Then there's the tale spun by some captured Alpha Legion Centurion. A dead world, he croaks, on the fringes of the Mandragoran stars, where the infant Primarch's pod supposedly crashed. Little Alpharius, alone among the bones of a civilization so old it makes Terra look like a newborn babe, surviving on piss and determination until a ship full of scum and Xenos filth had the misfortune to land. One dead crew later, and our boy was off to find Daddy Dearest. But wait, there's more. The Codex Hydra, a tome so riddled with lies it'd make a politician blush, offers its own flavor of bullshit. Barsavor, a world of tech priests and oligarchs, ripe for the taking. Until the sloth came calling, that is. Xenos nightmares with an appetite for human flesh and a grudge against infant demigods. Round and round the stories go, each more outlandish than the last, a web of deceit so tangled it'd make a spider weep with envy. Is any of it true? Who the fuck knows? This is Alpharius we're talking about. The Primarch of lies, the master of masks. Every story a smokescreen, every truth a dagger waiting to slip between your ribs. And while the scholars and historians try to make sense of it all, the Hydra grows feeding on confusion and doubt. In the records of imperial history, Alpharius's origin stands as a monument to fuckery, a tapestry of bullshit woven so tight it'd make the Emperor himself scratch his golden head in confusion. One such tale holds that on the tech world of Barsavor, Alpharius fell captive to the sloth, Xenos that bent him to their will, forging him into a weapon of living horror. It is said that the Emperor himself cleaved through the cold void to shatter Alpharius's chains, raining divine fury upon the Xenos vessel. In the aftermath, amidst the wreckage of alien flesh and twisted metal, the Emperor is rumored to have toiled for years to mend the scars etched into his son's soul. Another one claims Alpharius never left Terra at all. The only Primarch to escape the Great Scattering, raised in secrecy at the heart of the Imperium. Molded as a covert guardian and executor of his will, until the time came for him to vanish into the galaxy and enact his destiny. The very existence of such contradictory stories is a hallmark of the Alpha Legion's clandestine nature, a smokescreen cast wide over the truth of their Primarch. But here's the thing. Not a single one of these tales lines up with what little hard evidence exists. It's as if Alfarius himself is laughing from the shadows, watching us scrabble in the dirt for scraps of truth that probably don't even exist. After Alfarius was unveiled to the galaxy and ushered into the heart of the expanding Imperium, his union with the Emperor was celebrated with the pomp befitting a long-lost son's return. Yet the Chronicles of Terra speak of a reunion that was cool, curt, and cloaked in the formality of statecraft. The Emperor barely spared a glance for his last-found child before tossing him to the wolves of command. Some said the Emperor was just busy, his mind consumed by the rot already festering in his grand design. But others hinted at a deeper rift between father and son. But oh, the delicious irony of it all. For Alfarius wasn't just Alfarius, was he? No, that'd be too simple for the Hydra. Enter Omegon, the shadow twin, identical in flesh if not in soul. Two heads of the same beast, a secret shared only among their sons and perhaps the Emperor himself. Whether by design or some twist of fate, these twins shared more than just a face. They were said to share a single soul, with Omegon acting not merely as a lieutenant, but as an equal shadow in command. Two demigods moving as one. When Alfarius Omegon took the reins of the 20th Legion, they found a cadre of warriors not just ready, but eager to absorb the marrow of their war philosophy. These killers were crafted in their father's image. Not quite demigods, but with minds sharp enough to make the devil himself beg for mercy. Guided by their primarchs, the Alpha Legion was hurled to the fringes of the Imperium's dominion. Despite their status as the nascent force among the Legionese Astartes, they swiftly cultivated a reputation for ruthless efficiency and iron discipline. Their approach to warfare was a reflection of Alfarius himself, obscure, reticent, favoring the seamless might of the collective over the deeds of the singular. As one, they danced to Alfarius' tune, flowing over the battlefield in a symphony of bloodshed and deceit. But killing, that was just the start. They excelled in the shadowy arts, sabotage, ambush, assassination. They'd slit your throat and be gone before the blood finished spurting. Secrecy cloaked them, even among their so-called brothers. Always apart, always watching, always with that hint of a smirk beneath their emotionless masks. It was as if they knew some hilarious joke, and the punchline was written in the blood of lesser men. From the moment of their shadowy birth, the Alpha Legion thwarted the usual Imperial attempts to pin them down. The data scribes of the Imperialis Logistica floundered in their efforts to catalog such basic details as recruitment zones or heraldic symbols. The Legion appeared like a fever dream, fully formed and ready to fuck up your day. Names? They had as many as there were stars in the sky. The Alpha Legion, sure, that's what the common folk called them. But in battle reports, they were chameleons. The unbroken chain one day, the harrowing the next. And the individuals? Forget it. Try asking one of these soldiers his name, and you'd get Alfarius or some cryptic one of many reply. Unity, they'd say. Solidarity. But beneath those pretty words lay an obsession with secrecy. This wasn't just some parlor trick, some game to piss off their allies, though that was surely a bonus. No, this was war elevated to an art form. Every interaction a battle, every piece of information a weapon. They turned ambiguity into a shield and a sword, confounding friend and foe alike. The Alpha Legion played a game all their own. They spoke in tongues long dead, their very names a mockery of the souls they'd sent screaming into oblivion. An entire world wiped clean of life, its population ledger becoming nothing more than a catalogue of aliases for its killers. A grim joke that'd make even the dark gods pause in admiration. In battle, the Alpha Legion was a cancer given form. Subtle as a knife in the dark, yet capable of unleashing hell with the fury of a dying star. They'd slip into your nightmares, plant seeds of doubt that'd grow into forests of paranoia. And just when you thought you'd grasped their shadow, they'd reveal themselves as the mountain that had been looming over you all along. Espionage, infiltration, sabotage. They made it an art form, leaving even the vaunted Raven Guard looking like fumbling children in comparison. But where Korak's boys aimed for clean kills and bloodless victories, the Alpha Legion reveled in the slow, agonizing death of their prey. They'd bleed you dry, force you to dance to their twisted tune until your legs gave out. You'd be chasing ghosts, turning on your own in a frenzy of fear and mistrust. And all the while the Hydra watched, patient as death itself, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When the end came, it was always a masterpiece of cruelty. Attacks from all sides, each one a unique flavor of hell. By the time you realized the true threat, you were already dead. You just hadn't stopped moving yet. To their so-called brothers, the Alpha Legion was a shape-shifting enigma, a riddle wrapped in a lie and dipped in the blood of 1,000 battlefields. Sure, they could fight, no one doubted that, but to what end? For whom? The questions festered, breeding mistrust and paranoia among the Emperor's finest. But the enemies? Oh, those poor bastards. The Alpha Legion was their bogeyman, their nightmare given flesh, a hydra with 1,000 heads. No plan was safe, no secret secure. They'd find your weak spot, even if they had to flay you alive to do it. And mercy, honor, those were just words to be twisted and mocked as they danced in the ashes of your burning world. For a legion so young, they sure knew how to make an impression. Victories piled up, each one a middle finger to their older, more established brothers. They watched, they learned, they stole tactics, strategies, anything that wasn't nailed down. Hell, they'd even swipe the nails if they thought it'd give them an edge. As the gears of the Great Crusade ground onward, the chasm between the Alpha Legion and the other legions Astartes grew ever wider. Their insular tendencies, enigmatic tactics, and unorthodox approach to warfare brewed a potent cocktail of distrust and rivalry that soured relations. The Alpha Legion's penchant for deception led to strained confrontations with notable figures like Guilliman of the Ultramarines and Mortarion of the Death Guard, tensions that flared into open discord following the Ulanor Crusade and during the volatile Vesalius uprisings. And Dawn, that yellow-armored statue of a man? He didn't mince words. "Honorless assassins," he spat, as if honor meant a damn thing in a galaxy drowning in blood. It was only the Emperor's own commanding presence that quelled the simmering violence between the Imperial Fists and the Alpha Legion after the controversial fall of the fortress of Jakala during the Avalon Compliance. Even the Night Haunter, that butcher of Nostramo Quintus, had the gall to accuse someone else of hiding their sins. And the 1,000 Sons? They avoided the Alpha Legion like they were carrying some cosmic plague. Maybe they knew something the rest didn't. Wouldn't be the first time. But in this pit of vipers, One snake recognized its kin. Horus, the Golden Boy turned War Master, saw in the Alpha Legion a reflection of his own ambition, a tool to be used, a weapon to be aimed at the heart of, well, whatever Horus set his sights on. Oddly enough, the Lion's Dark Angels and the Iron Hand's Cold Logic found common ground with the Hydra. And non-Legion's Astartes troops? The Alpha Legion used them like a master puppeteer, pulling strings with cold precision until the dance was done and the bodies hit the floor. The Alpha Legion became masters at bending resistant human colonies to imperial compliance, as well as hunting down warp-tainted scum and wandering Xenos marauders with chilling efficacy. Horus saw the potential in Alpharius's brood. He cut their leash, let them run wild in the dark spaces between stars. They formed the spearhead of numerous expeditionary fleets and fractured into countless independent raiding parties that struck deep into the unknown, often in league with rogue traders prowling beyond the mapped stars. Yet as the shadows of the Horus heresy gathered, doubts began to gnaw at the War Master's confidence in this enigmatic force. Secret dispatches to both Horus and the gilded halls of Terra spoke of a legion slipping beyond the grasp of imperial oversight. The reports painted a picture of a force untethering from the Empire's control, their motives as opaque as the void itself. Reports piled up. Something was rotting in the heart of the 20th, a madness that twisted their methods into new realms of cruelty. They sought out battles not for glory or duty, but for the sheer, sick thrill of it all. Worlds burned in displays of tactical brilliance, for where a simple hammer blow would suffice, they chose instead the knife in the dark, reveling in the complexity of their own design. The Imperium found itself caught between a rock and a hard place. The Alpha Legion was a weapon too potent to discard, yet too dangerous to wield without fear of being cut. They were the flesh-eating virus eating away at the Great Crusade's noble facade, revealing the rot beneath. Testra Prime. That's where the Alpha Legion showed their true colors, painted their masterpiece in blood and fear. With defenses so weak you could punch through them with a harsh word. Most legions would have gone in hard and fast, all thunder and fury. But not Alpharius. No, they let the defenders fortify, build their little castles of hope, and then, with the patience of a spider watching a fly struggle in its web, they began to play. For a week, Testra Prime choked on its own terror. Ambushes lurked in the shadows, accidents piled corpses in the streets. By the time the Alpha Legion finished, not 1 in 10 stood to tell the tale. "Why such elaborate slaughter?" they asked Alpharius, the conductor of this spectacle. "The easy path offers no satisfaction," he had replied with a shrug, as if war was some puzzle to be solved for his own amusement. Gilliman nearly burst a blood vessel. His formal protest to Horus dripped with righteous indignation, decrying the waste of time and resources, as if that was the real crime here. Needless to say, the Ultramarines and the Alpha Legion parted ways. No more joint banners in the great theater of the Crusade. Whispers slithered through the corridors of Terra. The Alpha Legion, they said, had developed a taste for destruction that no amount of blood could sate. Anarchy, fire, blood. These were their true gods now. Compliance? Just an excuse to indulge their sick fantasies. But Horus, blind or willfully ignorant, waved it all away. And so the Hydra retreated to the fringes of known space. There their deceptions deepened. New names, new faces, always hiding behind a mask until the moment came to strike. On the blasted plains of Nurth, in the midst of screams and burning flesh, an alien cabal decides to play puppet master with humanity's fate. They dangled two futures before Alfarius and his shadow self, each one more nightmarish than the last. Option 1. The Emperor wins, and humanity rots slowly, its limbs feeding chaos for millennia. Option 2. Horus takes the throne, burns it all down, and starves the dark gods in one grand conflagration. And what did our serpentine heroes do? They chose the path of greatest carnage, all in the name of salvation. The Alpha Legion has always been for the Emperor, they cried, even as they pledged their souls to the very forces they sought to destroy. Was it nobility or madness, loyalty or the greatest betrayal in galactic history? Who knows? Maybe the Cabal was right. Maybe they were lying through their alien teeth. Either way, the Alpha Legion danced to their tune, thinking themselves clever while the galaxy burned. Now, 10,000 years later, their battle cry of "For the Emperor" echoes across war-torn worlds. Is it mockery? A twisted joke? Or the last desperate plea of sons who've realized far too late that they've damned themselves and everything they ever fought for? Some say that they seek to free the Emperor from his golden prison, to fulfill a prophecy written in the blood of trillions. But in the grim darkness of the far future, such distinctions are as meaningful as a whore's virtue in a Slaneshi temple. When the fires of the Horus heresy blazed forth and Istvan III was drenched in blood, the Alpha Legion prepared to play their hand. 50,000 of the Emperor's finest, each one a serpent in superhuman skin, poised to strike at the command of Terra's watchdog, Rogel Dawn. The Primarch thought he was unleashing faithful hounds. Instead, he was releasing vipers into the Imperium's very veins. Lucius, that mechanical womb of war, had birthed them anew after years of silence on the galaxy's edge. Fresh-forged weapons, oiled with the blood of countless Xenos worlds, ready to carve Horus's name across the stars. But Istvan was just the beginning, the first domino in a galaxy-spanning game of death. For years, the Hydra had been spreading its poison, seeding worlds with doubt and discord. Now, as Horus bared his teeth, those seeds blossomed into nightmares. Billions died, worlds burned, all to the quiet laughter of hidden agents who'd been playing the long game while their brothers charged headlong into glory or damnation. Even on worlds untouched by Astartes' boots, the Alpha Legion's tendrils wormed deep. Civil strife, assassinations, mass hysteria. Chaos brewed in 1,000 forms, each one bearing the Hydra's invisible stamp. Yet for all their lethal grace, for all the devastation they wrought, Horus himself couldn't trust his own attack dogs. The War Master knew in his black heart that the Alpha Legion danced to their own twisted tune. He'd unleashed them, yes, but could he control them? On the scorched fields of Istvan V, they came as saviors, loyal sons of the Emperor, their armor gleaming. The first wave of true believers rushed forward, righteous fury burning in their hearts. Deluded bastards! They never saw the knife until it was buried in their backs. The Drop Site Massacre. Even the name reeks of blood and betrayal, doesn't it? Ferrus Manus, that iron-handed giant, his head rolled from his shoulders by a brother's blade. Vulcan vanished like smoke, leaving only whispers and ash. And Korax, oh how the raven bled, his wings clipped and his sons scattered to the winds. For 3 months, the World Eaters, those frothing, chain-axe-wielding lunatics, hunted the Raven Guard. It was only when all hope seemed lost that salvation came screaming from the skies. But this was just the beginning, the first act in a galaxy-spanning tragedy. While their cousins reveled in open slaughter, the Alpha Legion played a subtler game. The Raven Guard, bleeding and broken, found themselves infiltrated, their secrets laid bare for the traitors to feast upon. The road to terror, to the very Golden Throne itself, was being paved with the corpses of trust and brotherhood. After the butchery at Istvan V, the Cabal, those Xenos puppet masters, sought to harness the Alpha Legion's cunning to hasten Horus's ascendancy. Meanwhile, the shattered Raven Guard limped back to deliverance, their hearts heavy, unaware that the Alpha Legion had seeded their ranks with wolves cloaked in raven skins, operatives carved and crafted to mirror the fallen. These impostors gleaned secrets from the desperate efforts of Primarch Korax to reforge his broken legion. He toiled to birth warriors from the purest genetic strands gifted by the Emperor himself, a beacon of hope that the Alpha Legion aimed to extinguish. When it all went to shit, it went spectacularly. The Primarch's tampered gene seed, once a promise of rebirth, twisted newborn Astartes into monstrosities. As if on cue, Kiavar, the Forge world in Deliverance's shadow, erupted in flames. Alpha Legion warbands drew close, blades honed for the kill. But even the best laid plans can go awry. The Ravens, by some miracle, managed to crush the rebellion beneath their talons. In the aftermath, Omegon met with the Cabal's lackey, Athithirtir. He told the Xenos where to shove their grand plans. From now on, the Alpha Legion would forge its own path through the galaxy. In the void-black expanse of the Kondak system, the Alpha Legion wove its web of lies and half-truths. The White Scars, those wild sons of Chogoris, found themselves trapped like rats in a cosmic cage, unaware that the galaxy was burning around them. Alpharius had his legionaries playing blockade, their ships a noose around Jaghatai Khan's throat. But this was just the surface, the pretty lie hiding an uglier truth. For in the shadows, Omegon played a deeper game. Picture Tenebrae 950, a hunk of rock barely worth pissing on, turned into a fortress of secrets. Its heart, a pylon array spewing static across the stars, keeping the scars blind and deaf to the galaxy's death throes. And there, Omegon planted the seeds of its destruction. Sheed Ranko and his team, poor bastards, sent on a one-way trip to oblivion. Did they know they were nothing but pawns, their lives worth less than the bolter rounds they carried? Did they taste the lie on their tongues as they swallowed the bullshit about information leaks? When Tenebrae 950 died, it screamed its secrets into the void. The warp, that hellish realm of broken physics, suddenly calmed. And through that moment of peace, the truth of Horus's betrayal finally reached the White Scar's ears. Rogal Dorn's call echoed across light years, a desperate plea from a fortress already under siege. The tang of fear, the stench of impending doom, it all came rushing in, filling the void left by the Alpha Legion's deceptions. The White Scars, wild sons of the steppes, suddenly found themselves face to face with the Hydra's coils. The Alpha Legion's warships hung in the black like carrion birds, silent and waiting. Jaghatai's boys tried to hail those sneaky bastards, but the Vox crackled with nothing but static and the laughter of distant stars. The Alpha Legion's silence spoke volumes, a promise of violence wrapped in a shroud of mystery. "Hold your ground," came the order, passed from ship to ship like a prayer. "Don't let those serpents slither too close, as if that would make a lick of difference when the killing started. Then the great Khan, that speed-crazed demigod, decided he'd had enough of this cosmic Mexican standoff. "We're leaving," he declared, and you could almost hear the collective sphincters of his legion tightening in anticipation. The White Scar's engines roared to life, a battle cry that echoed across the system. And the Alpha Legion? Those cunning fucks had every exit blocked, every escape route cut off. They'd turned Sondax into a killing jar, with the scars as the butterflies pinned inside. But Jaghatai Khan didn't earn his reputation by playing by anyone else's rules. In a heartbeat, his fleet transformed from a drifting mess into an arrow of pure murderous intent. They hit the Alpha Legion's lines like a thunderbolt splitting the sky, a shock assault that left destruction in its wake. Lasers carved into the void. Torpedoes screamed between ships, and for a moment, it seemed like the galaxy itself held its breath. When the dust settled, the White Scars were gone, leaving nothing but wreckage behind. And the Alpha Legion's big guns? Those planet-killing behemoths? They sat there like impotent giants, watching their prey slip through their fingers. It was almost as if they'd wanted the Scars to escape all along. In the heart of the Alaxis Nebula, two legions prepared to tear each other apart. The Space Wolves, still reeking of Prospero's ashes, licked their wounds and bared their fangs, and circling them like sharks scenting blood, the Alpha Legion. Alpharius saw his chance to settle an old score. Layman Russ had pissed on their methods one too many times. Trickery, he'd called it, dishonorable. Damn hypocrite. Horus had given the order. Crush the wolves, keep them from Terra's defense. And oh, how the Hydra relished the task. The Sixth Legion, bloodied and outnumbered, howling into the void for help. And who did they call? The White Scars, those wild sons of Chagoris. Jaghatai Khan, caught in a web of lies and half-truths, listened to Russ's plea. Sympathy? Sure. But trust? That was in exceedingly short supply. "Good luck, brother," the Khan said, his words dripping with all the warmth of a dead star. And then he was gone, leaving Russ and his wolves to face the Hydra alone. The Space Wolves cowered in their ships, while their vaunted Primarch sulked in his chambers like a child denied his favorite toy. Poor First Captain Gunhilt, left to herd cats in a storm of shit and blood. But when the Alpha Legion's jaws were about to snap shut, old Russ finally crawled out of his hole. Too little, too late, you might think. But you'd be wrong. Dead wrong. On the bridge of the Hrafnkel, Russ's floating palace of testosterone and fur. In a bright flash, the elite of the Alpha Legion materialize, and there, hidden among them, Alpharius himself. The two Primarchs clashed. Steel met steel, blood painted the deck, and just as victory seemed within the Hydra's grasp, a new player entered the field. The Dark Angel's mighty fleet came screaming out of deep space, led by the Starfort Chimera. The Alpha Legion, caught with their pants down, had no choice but to turn tail and run. With their sprawling web of spies and saboteurs, the Alpha Legion had not merely penetrated the Imperium's heart. They thrived within it, even as the galaxy tore itself apart. To them, the meticulously fortified Segmentum Solar was not a barrier, but a challenge, a stage on which to demonstrate their dark artistry. Rogel Dawn had poured his obsession into every stratum of Sol's defenses, each planet, each rock floating in space, bristled with enough firepower to make even Khorne shit himself. Well, almost. But for the Alpha Legion, this wasn't just about winning. No, they had to prove a point. Breaching the outer defense? Child's play. They set their sights on the ultimate prize, the Imperial Palace. And how did they plan to pull this off, with warriors so deep in the mindfuck that they didn't know which way was up? Imagine Alpha Legion killers, each one a loaded gun with multiple triggers. One word, one scrap of parchment, and their entire mission could flip on its head. Protect the target becomes paint the walls with his brains. Deep in the sanctum of the Imperial Palace, the Alpha Legion played their grandest game yet. Decades of planning, of lies whispered and loyalties corrupted, all came to fruition in a single night of exquisite vandalism. Activated cells that had slumbered beneath the Emperor's gaze for decades now crept through the hallowed corridors to the Investiary, a silent hall where stone generals stood sentinel in eternal tribute to the Great Crusade. 20 plinths, each a monument to glory or shame. 2 stood empty, their occupants erased from history like shit wiped from the Emperor's golden ass. 9 more cowered beneath shrouds, traitors too infamous to destroy, but too damned to display. Into this chamber slithered the Alpha Legion's chosen few. They quickly went about their work. Crash, boom, shatter. The sound of legends toppling, of heroes reduced to rubble. When the dust settled, only 2 remained standing. Alfarius and Dawn. A challenge and a mockery, written in the language of destruction. Look, it screamed without words. Even in your sanctum we can reach you. The beauty of it, the sick, twisted beauty, not a soul knew. Not Malcador, that withered corpse of a man who fancied himself the power behind the throne. Not even the Custodes, those golden lapdogs too busy polishing their spears to notice the viper in their midst. But secrets have a way of slipping out, don't they? Somehow, some fucking how, the Sigillite caught wind of the Alpha Legion's presence. And Dawn, he seethed, his rage a promise of vengeance to come. The tendrils of this treachery reached far beyond the marbled halls of terror. In the cold void, Harrowmaster Kel Silonius and his fleet came knocking at Saul's door. Pluto's moons fell, the outermost defenses crumbling like a sandcastle before the tide. The details, known only to Dawn and his tight-lipped bodyguards, another secret in a galaxy drowning in them. Alfarius had a plan. Oh, what a wicked plan it was. An entire fleet drifting through the void like a plague waiting to infect. Every soul aboard locked in stasis, dreaming sweet dreams of the carnage to come. Their ships, great metal beasts of war, limping along at the pace of a crippled snail, their hearts barely beating. For a whole year they floated, patient, silent. The watchdogs of the Imperium pissed away their time on lesser threats, never noticing the snake coiling at their feet. This wasn't war as the Imperium knew it. This was a masterclass in patience, in the art of the long game. Alfarius had turned his legion into a cosmic time bomb, ticking away in plain sight. As the ghostly silhouette of the Alpha Legion fleet crept ever closer to the heart of the Sol system, a dormant network of terror stirred into life. These assets, the Spartoi, augmented humans sculpted for slaughter, and covert operative teams, had been silently woven into the fabric of the Imperium, their deadly potential lying in wait since well before the first cries of Horus's heresy tore the galaxy asunder. Terra, that bloated tick of a planet, convulsed as its guts were ripped open from within. Murder and mayhem danced hand in hand through its hive cities, while saboteurs played merry hell with its defenses. And Dawn, that piss-yellow statue of a Primarch, ran around like a headless chicken, trying to plug 1,000 leaks with his bare hands. But this was just the overture. As the Imperium was trying to contain the fires of rebellion, Alfarius struck. 200 ships, each one pregnant with death, descended on Pluto and its moons. At its heart, the Moon Hydra, a name dripping with irony. This wasn't just some random rock. This was the Imperium's ear to the stars, and Alfarius himself came to cut it off. Opposite this formidable force, the Loyalist defenders, commanded by the stalwart Imperial Fist's first captain Sigismund. Marooned with but 30 ships against a vastly superior Alpha Legion armada, their situation was dire. The cunning of the traitors was manifest in their use of fire ships, those floating coffins of death hidden among their fleet. When they blossomed into infernos, it was almost beautiful, catching Sigismund off guard and tearing through the Imperial defenses with ruthless efficiency. As Hydra fell under the shadow of Alfarius, the now captured fortress moon of Kerberos was turned against its own. Its guns, once protectors of the Sol system, now hammered their sister moons, Charon, Nyx, and Styx, with relentless fire. And there, in the midst of this storm of shit and shrapnel, stood the Imperial Fists, outnumbered, outgunned, and probably out of their fucking minds, but standing nonetheless. Say what you will about Dawn's boys, but they knew how to die with their boots on. In the void black heart of the Sol system, where hope went to die and madness came to feast, the dance of death reached its fever pitch. Arshamus, master of the Huskarls, sworn to Dawn's service, finally pulled his head out of his ass long enough to see the Hydra's true game. The astropathic network, the Imperium's cosmic nervous system, lay exposed and vulnerable. The battle that ensued was a saga of blood and sacrifice. The Huskarls, embodying the unbreakable spirit of the Imperial Fists, clashed with the cunning traitors, their valor immense, but their numbers too few. The skirmish left a trail of ruin. Huskarls were reduced to red mist, and Archimus himself was laid low, his body a map of wounds, his mission a Pyrrhic footnote in the annals of war. Yet in war, as in all things, the wheel of fate turns swiftly. The tide of battle, so recently in the grasp of Alfarius, was wrenched away by a feat of imperial might and maneuver. From the depths of void-black nothing, it came. The phalanx, Dawn's dick-measuring contest, made manifest in steel and fury. A star fortress to make planets weep, trailing an armada that blotted out Pluto's feeble sun. And at its heart, Rogal fucking Dawn himself, come to crash his traitor brother's party. They rode the gravity wells like surfers on a tide of cosmic vomit, slingshotting across the system in a move that'd make physics itself throw up its hands and walk away. One moment, sweet victory for the Alpha Legion. The next, Kerberos's guns silent, and Dawn's boots on Hydra's blood-soaked soil. This wasn't just a battle anymore. This was two demigods playing chess with planets as pawns, each move echoing across eternity. Dawn and Alfarius, loyalty and treachery incarnate, their clash inevitable as the heat death of the universe. Poor Archimus, more corpse than man, forced to watch as titans battled, his last act of loyalty, swinging his pissant blade at Alpharius's spear as futile as pissing on a forest fire. But Dawn had one last trick up his sleeve. The Praetorian of Terra, deliberately stepping into a blow that could split planets. The pale spear bit deep, but oh, how the tables turned. What followed was a ballet of butchery. Dawn's chainsword, Storm's teeth, sang its song of death and dismemberment. First, Alpharius' hands, those instruments of deceit, severed like rotten branches. Then his chest, carved open like a Slaneshi pleasure slave. The pale spear, that symbol of Alpha Legion cunning, turned against its master in the cruelest of ironies. And then, Storm's teeth, hungry for some delicious Primarch brains, drove through the top of Alpharius's skull. The sound of a demigod's death echoed across the chamber, a note of finality in the cacophony of war. This wasn't just combat. This was mythology being written in real time, with blood as ink and shattered ceramite as parchment. Dawn had done the seemingly impossible. He'd killed a Primarch, his own brother no less. As Alpharius's corpse hit the ground, you could almost hear the threads of fate snapping. The Alpha Legion, that hydra of lies and deception, had just lost its largest head. As the last light of Alpharius dispersed, the Alpha Legion retreated from the icy grip of Pluto. Far across the star-strewn battlefield, Omegon felt a distant tremor through the bond only twins might know, a silent herald of his brother's demise. Within moments, the echo of fate's bell was followed by the stark demands of the War Master, his voice a clarion call to Alpharius to account for the assault on the Sol system. With a practiced ease, Omegon slipped into the guise of his fallen brother, adopting the mantle of Alpharius with the solemnity of one stepping into a grave. Henceforth, he would be the sole face of the 20th Legion. While the rest of the traitor legions jerked off to visions of terror burning, the Alpha Legion played a different game. They became the cosmic cockblockers, keeping the Emperor's lapdogs busy while Horus tried to skull-fuck the Imperium into submission. Talan saw White Scar's blood painting the sand. Yarant watched space wolves howl their last as Alpha Legion bolters sang them to sleep. Little victories in a war of attrition, pissing contests while Rome fucking burned. But in the end, what did it matter? Horus, for all his Primarch glory, ended up as nothing more than a greasy smear on the Emperor's gold-plated boots. The Siege of Terra, that grand orgy of violence and stupidity, came to its inevitable bloody conclusion. And the Alpha Legion? They slunk back into the shadows, their grand plans as useful as tits on a space marine. Omegon, wearing his dead brother's name like an ill-fitting suit, led his sons into an uncertain future. In the bleak aftermath of the Horus heresy, the Alpha Legion once again proved they danced to the beat of their own drum. While their traitor brothers scurried to the murky sanctuary of the Eye of Terror, the 20th set their sights eastward, chasing shadows and whispers only they could hear. But the universe had one last joke to play. For in the east, they found not easy prey, but the Ultramarines, those blue-armored Boy Scouts with their heads so far up Gilliman's ass they could taste what he had for breakfast. And oh, how the sparks flew when Hydra met Eagle. Picture Escrador, a world soon to be baptized in blood. Alpharius, or was it Omegon wearing his dead brother's face, smiled as the Ultramarines came knocking. On one side, the Ultramarines with their precious codex and rigid formations. On the other, the Alpha Legion, a writhing mass of secrets and lies. This was more than just legion versus legion. This was ideology made manifest, a clash between order and chaos, between the unyielding hammer of Guilliman's vision and the serpentine cunning of the Hydra. It was here that Guilliman finally decided to take off his tactical training wheels. For once, the great Codex Humper decided to color outside the lines. And what a masterpiece he painted. Alfarius thought he had it all figured out. He'd dance his little dance of deception, prove once and for all that his Hydra could swallow Guilliman's eagle whole. The Alpha Legion set their trap with all the loving care of a serial killer, arranging his tools, each piece placed just so. A perfect ambush, they thought, like so many before. But Guilliman? He saw the trap, admired its craftsmanship, then proceeded to tear it apart. As night fell, he led a considerable force of his ultramarines deep into the mountainous terrain that backdropped their battlefield, territory unsuited for traditional warfare, where supply lines and support could not reach. Employing a mix of thunderhawks, drop pods, and the arcane science of teleportation, Guilliman positioned his forces not just on, but within the very heart of the Alpha Legion's encampment. This surprise insertion threw the traitors' command into chaos, turning their calculated defenses into a snare of their own making. 5 loyalists for every traitor, a tide of vengeance with Guilliman himself at its crest. The Alpha Legion, those masters of fluid warfare, found themselves backed into a corner like rats in a flood. The mountains that had seemed so perfect for an ambush now became a steel trap, jaws closing on the serpent's neck. With nowhere to run, the sons of Alfarius did the only thing they could. They chose to die standing. When it was over, Alfarius Omegon, or just some poor bastard in borrowed armor, lay dead at Guilliman's feet. They burned the body on a pyre. But if Guilliman thought this was the end, he was in for a real surprise. The Alpha Legion, those magnificent bastards, didn't break. They didn't run. No, they turned on their pursuers like a wounded animal, all teeth and claws and venomous spite. The Ultramarines, so proud in their blue armor, found themselves picked apart. By the time they limped back to Guilliman, they were more ghosts than men. Days bled into nights, each hour a fresh horror. The Hydra proved true to its name. For every head Guilliman cut off, 2 more sprang up to bite him in the ass. In the end, the great Robut Guilliman, master tactician and paragon of virtue, did the only thing he could. He ran like a bitch.